Let me set the scene for you. Imagine working hard to make your home your safe place, your little slice of peace, only to have someone repeatedly disrespect it. That's what happened to me when one of my neighbors, let's just say the classic HOA Karen, decided the rules didn't apply to her. She thought it was perfectly fine to cut across my yard any time she wanted, just to get to her favorite parking spot faster. At first, I thought maybe it was an accident, maybe a one-time thing, but no, this became her routine. Every single day she would trample across my grass, ignoring the clear path meant for everyone else. Now, I don't usually like drama, and I really tried to handle it calmly. I spoke to her politely. I even suggested better parking options. But instead of listening, she doubled down. She told me, "It's just grass. Get over it," as if my property meant nothing. It wasn't just about the grass, it was about respect. Imagine watching someone cut through your space, wearing down your yard, and treating your home like a public shortcut. It starts to get under your skin. The HOA didn't help either. Every time I reported it, they brushed it off, almost like they were afraid to upset her. That's when I realized if I didn't put a stop to it, no one would. So I came up with a plan, not out of anger, but out of pure necessity. Let's just say it involved a little creativity, some hardware, and the kind of solution that would make sure no one could cross my yard without thinking twice. And when Karen tried it again, she got the surprise of her life. The crazy part about all this is that it didn't start out as some big feud. When I first moved into the neighborhood, I tried to be friendly with everyone, including her. She already had a reputation as the HOA enforcer, the type who would walk around with a clipboard, taking pictures of people's mailboxes if they weren't painted the exact shade of beige the rules required. Honestly, I thought it was a little over the top, but I figured if I stayed on her good side, there wouldn't be any problems. Turns out, that didn't matter. The trouble really began the moment I landscaped my front yard. I put in fresh sod, planted a few shrubs, and built a small flower bed along the walkway. It was a lot of work, and I was proud of it. But to her, it must have looked like nothing more than an open shortcut. I remember the first time I saw her walk across it. I thought maybe she was lost or in a hurry. But the very next day, there she was again, cutting right through the middle, heels digging into the grass. I tried to handle it the neighborly way. I waved her down, explained that I had just laid new grass, and asked if she could please use the sidewalk like everyone else. She smiled in that tight, dismissive way and said, "Don't worry, it'll grow back." That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to stop. What made it worse was that the HOA board seemed blind to it. Every complaint I made somehow disappeared. Neighbors quietly told me she had friends in the right places, which explained why she always got away with bending the rules. The more I watched my yard get trampled, the more I knew I had to take matters into my own hands. But the question was, how far was I willing to go to make sure she finally got the message? It wasn't just about her walking through the yard anymore. It became a daily reminder that she thought the rules were for everyone else, but not for her. The more I paid attention, the more I noticed she wasn't just cutting across my property for convenience. She had this routine where she'd park her car in a spot closer to her unit, even though it wasn't technically assigned to her. To get there, my yard was the shortcut. It wasn't just lazy, it was deliberate. She knew exactly what she was doing. What made it worse was how other neighbors reacted. Some whispered about it, but never spoke up, probably scared of getting on her bad side. Others pretended not to see it at all, like it was easier to look the other way than deal with her wrath. That's the power HOA Karen held. She thrived on intimidation. I even caught her one morning chatting with another board member right on my lawn, laughing like it was her personal patio. It was infuriating. Meanwhile, I started noticing the damage. The grass I worked so hard to grow had patches that looked dead from constant foot traffic. The flower bed, completely uneven from her heels, pressing into the soil. And it wasn't just physical damage, it was the feeling of being ignored in my own space. That sense of helplessness started to eat at me. At night, I'd catch myself replaying the same thought. What if she never stops? What if this keeps happening year after year and the HOA continues to cover for her? That idea made me restless. I realized this wasn't just a petty neighbor dispute. It was about boundaries, respect, and finally standing up for myself in a place where it felt like no one else would. And that's when the real plan began to form in my mind. Once I decided enough was enough, everything shifted. I started looking at my yard differently, not as a patch of grass, but as a stage where a battle of respect was playing out. Every time I saw her strut across like she owned it, my determination grew stronger. I knew I couldn't rely on the HOA, and polite conversations had already failed. If she wanted to ignore boundaries, then I needed to create some that she physically couldn't ignore. The tricky part was coming up with something effective but not over the top. Spent nights sketching ideas, browsing through home improvement forums, even talking to a couple of neighbors I trusted. That's when the idea of a gate came to me, not just any gate, but one designed to make crossing impossible. I wanted it to look like part of my landscaping, something natural, but with a twist that would stop her in her tracks. As I gathered supplies, I couldn't help but feel a mix of nerves and excitement. It wasn't about revenge, it was about taking control back. Still, I'd be lying if I said I didn't smile thinking about the look on her face. The first time she realized her little shortcut was closed for good. The tension really spiked the day I started installing it. She noticed. From across the street, I saw her standing with her arms crossed, glaring like she already sensed her days of strolling through my yard were numbered. She didn't say a word, but her expression said plenty. The more I worked, the more the neighborhood buzzed. People slowed down to watch, curious about what I was building. Some even whispered, as if they knew something big was about to happen. And sure enough, it all came to a head the very next time she tried to cross. The moment finally came when she marched up, ready to cut through my yard like she always had. Only this time, the gate stood in her way. I was watching from inside, heart pounding, as she stopped short. For a second, I thought maybe this was it, that she'd finally give up and move on. But of course, Karen wasn't the type to back down so easily. She rattled the gate, tested it, and then stood there fuming. Like she was personally offended that someone dared to block her shortcut. But here's where the twist came in. Instead of walking away, she decided to escalate. The very next day, I got a notice taped to my door. It was from the HOA, claiming my new gate was unauthorized construction and a violation of community aesthetics. The kicker? The complaint was signed anonymously, but I didn't need to guess who filed it. She wasn't just mad. Had blocked her, she was determined to use the HOA's power against me. Now I was caught in a bigger fight. It wasn't just about keeping her off my lawn anymore. It was about whether I even had the right to protect my own property. I started gathering evidence photos of the damage she had done, timestamps of when she crossed, and even quiet testimonies from neighbors who had seen it all happen. The real surprise came when a neighbor hinted that she had been bragging about her connections on the HOA board. If that was true, it meant the very people who were supposed to keep things fair might already be on her side. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a shortcut. It was about exposing how far she was willing to go to keep control. And with the next HOA meeting coming up, I knew everything was about to explode. The night of the HOA meeting felt like the showdown I had been waiting for. I walked in with my folder full of photos, dates, and statements from neighbors. My heart was racing, but I knew this was the moment to stand up not just for myself, but for anyone who had been pushed around by her antics. Sure enough, there she was at the front, acting like she practically owned the room. She even smirked when she saw me sit down as if she already knew the outcome. When the issue of my unauthorized gate came up, she jumped in first, loudly insisting it was a violation and demanding it be removed. But before anyone could agree, I calmly opened my folder and started laying out the evidence. Picture after picture showed her walking across my lawn, damaging the grass, even standing on my flower bed while talking on her phone. I could feel the mood in the room shift. People murmured, some even nodding. For once, the spotlight was on her behavior, not mine. Then came the twist. Just as the board seemed ready to side with me, one of the newer members spoke up. He admitted he had also caught her cutting across his property weeks before, and he was tired of staying quiet. That broke the dam. Other neighbors finally chimed in, sharing their own stories of how she bent rules, ignored warnings, and bullied her way through the community. By the end of the meeting, the board ruled in my favor. My gate could stay, and she was issued a formal warning. For the first time, she didn't have the last word. But as I walked home that night, feeling like I'd finally won, I noticed something chilling. My gate was slightly ajar. Someone had tampered with it. The battle might have been won, but the war? That was just beginning. Seeing that gate ajar sent a shiver down my spine. For a moment, I thought we were heading right back into another round of conflict. But instead of letting fear take over, I decided to do something different. Installed a small camera near the yard. If anyone tried to tamper with my property again, I'd have proof. And this time, there would be no way to twist the story. The next few weeks were quiet, almost unnervingly so. She stopped cutting across, and for the most part, she kept her distance. Neighbors started coming by more often, thanking me for standing up at the meeting because, in a way, it gave them the courage to stop putting up with the little power games too. The HOA board, probably embarrassed by how much they had ignored, suddenly became stricter about enforcing rules fairly. It felt like a small but important shift in the community. One day, I saw her walking toward her car, carrying groceries. She glanced at me, then at the gate, and for the first time, she didn't scowl or smirk. She just looked away and kept walking. No words were exchanged. But I think we both understood something had changed. My yard was no longer her shortcut, and my boundaries had finally been respected. Looking back, the whole ordeal taught me something bigger than just dealing with a difficult neighbor. It showed me how easy it is to lose control of your own space when you don't speak up, and how important it is to draw the line even if it makes waves. So in the end, the gate wasn't just about keeping someone out, it was about reclaiming my peace of mind. And that, more than anything, made every bit of the fight worth it.